How's it going, everybody? This is Beat the Bush. These are 10-inch restaurant quality meat cutters. I've owned this Beswood one for a couple of months now. Now I bought this KWS one to compare the two. They are similar in price, and depending on sales, one might be more expensive than the other. The KWS comes with a 320 watt motor. Beswood comes with a 240 watt motor. Personally, I've never ran into an issue where it does not have enough power. Later on, we can cut some meat and check how much wattage it actually uses. In reality, you'll only need to hit the higher wattage if you're cutting something really tough and it stops the motor from spinning. Using my Beswood, I've never had an instance where it actually stalled the motor at all whatsoever. And the other difference is that this one comes with a stainless steel blade. This one is what they call a chromium-plated blade, which basically means it's chrome. Stainless steel versus chrome. Both are very anti-corrosion, except stainless steel is a little bit better. Stainless steel is very durable against harsh detergents and cleaners, whereas chromium, if you use something harsh, it might actually rub off. So as long as you know this, don't use harsh cleaners on your meat cutter. Personally, I just use a little bit of soap and I just wipe it down that way. On the other hand, chromium has a lower coefficient of friction so that if you're slicing meat, it just falls right off. To me, having used them both, they're similar in performance. This is just the blade. Most of the other parts on this thing, it's aluminum. If you slide this thing all the way forward, you can feel there's a little bit of springiness that bounces back. On the back side, there's also a spring. But on the Beswood, there's no spring on the front end. It just kind of knocks itself. But on the back end, there is a spring. Small difference, and it's just a little nicer with a little spring-loaded thing there. In the KWS, there's a plastic pin over here that keeps it from going down any further. The Beswood is constructed slightly differently. The stop is towards the inside rather than the outside. The handle is a little bit wider at around 1¼ inch. In the KWS, it's only 7/8 of an inch. When you cut the meat, it comes out of here, and if this blocking plate is not high enough, it could get stuck inside this crevice here. There is a aluminum blocking plate, but it's rather small. The blocking plate in the Beswood is a little bit longer, so you can cut something a little bit thicker and it'll hit it and it won't get trapped inside. Here you can see the chrome blade. It's actually so reflective that you can see a reflection of this plate here. The KWS on-off button is actually stuck in there. You can't pull this off at all to clean. Whereas on the Beswood, you can actually pull this off, clean the buttons as needed, and put the little rubber gasket back on. The parts that holds the grinding stone in the KWS is not made out of metal, whereas in the Beswood, it is, so it might be a little bit more durable there. To me, there's no significant difference between the two. The sliding table, in the KWS, they opted to have a separate part here and connect it via a screw. In the Beswood is one solid piece of aluminum, so I think this is a little bit more durable than the KWS. The plastic guard in the KWS is held together by 2 screws. The ones in the Beswood is significantly bigger, 0.4 inches, whereas the size of these is 0.588. You want to spread out the pressure as much as possible so it reduces the chance of cracking. In theory, this won't be as durable. In the KWS, if I turn it on without cutting anything, it uses about 91 watts. If I start cutting some meat, it increases a little bit, 100 watts, but it's nowhere near 320 watts. Let me try to really push it, like really try to stall it by cutting it fast. 116 watts, but that's as high as I could get it, even though I'm like really jamming it in there. With the Beswood, if I turn it on, surprisingly, it uses 91 watts also. If I start cutting meat, 92, 94, let me jam it in there, 100. Now this meat was defrosted a little bit. See, we have about 1/4 inch left. I can try my best to cut this piece still. But this is the kind of waste that you're gonna have. Personally, I just slice it with a knife to get to the last bit. Just so I'm not cheating, I got another piece of meat that's just straight out of the freezer, so it's a lot colder and harder. And let's try to push that in through this machine. 95 watts, 97 watts, really jam it in there, 100 watts. I want it a little bit thinner. It's 3/4 of the way between 0 and 1. So yeah, it stays around 100 watts, nowhere near 240 watts. And so you can see you have a huge amount of overhead before you hit the limit. In the KWS, the meat slides against this panel. There are two visible screws. On the back, the bracket is a little bit square, and there's a grommet where I can actually physically lift it up. This will give way to meat possibly getting stuck in there. The Beswood's constructed a bit better. There are no visible screws here. The way they do this is probably to tap this metal directly, a little bit more polished and rounded. And the grommet that holds it down, it doesn't really lift up. It's kind of smooth to the touch, so this will keep any kind of food from getting stuck in here. The top bracket on the KWS, you see this edge here. It's kind of square. On the Beswood, they finished it a little bit better, so it's a bit more rounded. The underside of the KWS looks a little bit better. It has a metal cover, but on the Beswood, the undercover is actually plastic. And we see here there's a stopper grommet instead of the spring. Either machine is very good, but if I had the choice from the beginning, knowing what I know, I would still pick the Beswood, only by a very, very small margin. More importantly for me is to cut all of the meat every single time I go. And having a 1/4 inch left is a lot already. If you are interested in either of these machines, check out my Amazon affiliate link down in the video description below. Thanks for watching this video. Until next time.